JEA board meeting. If I could have everyone stand for a moment of reflection, and then Lisa, if you will lead us in the pledge.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Lisa.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone will follow their agenda. I would ask for a motion for the adoption of our agenda.
So moved.
Moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Fine. Briefing. Safety briefing. Make sure we're okay. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Darrell Calvin. I'm the Director of Water Wastewater Reuse Treatment. I'll be providing your briefing this morning. Your safety buddy is the person to your right, and this morning we have some nice volunteer to provide CPR. Okay, good. Thank you. We will exit if we need to. The stairwell to the left of the elevators. Please be aware of the hazards in the room while exiting and hold on to the handrails while descending the stairs. We will meet in the church parking lot at the corner of Main and Ashley. I'll handle the call to security, be the last out of the building, or out of the room anyway. And Ray Marshall will handle the call to 911. Fire extinguishers are located to the left of the elevators and only are used for clearing their way to the exit. And restrooms are located to the right of the elevators down the hall for our guests. I work for Brian Roche in Water Wastewater Systems. My group is responsible for about 1,200 sewer pump stations and related odor controls. We have 5 regional and 6 satellite wastewater facilities, 35 water plants, 130 or so water wells. We have about 200 employees consisting of operators, mechanics, E&I technicians, and engineers that maintain those assets. Our focus is primarily on permit compliance, and of course our impact to our customers and with all those facilities. You can imagine we have a lot of interaction. We focus obviously on PN, total nitrogen, and costs and safety. On the safety front, we've had 3 recordables this year, which a typical year for us is 1 to 3 or so, and our RIR is about a 2.1, so we're not really pulling our share this year. But we are close. We've had 3 incidences that are relatively minor. We can get to that next stage where we're thinking proactively for safety rather than waiting and reacting to. I meet with each of the new hires in our group. We have some turnover, as you can imagine, our workforce getting older and retiring. Meet with each new employee and talk about where we've come from, including the accident that claimed Robert Ridenhour's life back in '95 or so. And we talk about how we do put importance on safety. And I think we need to get better in that regard. I started my career with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. I co-opted there when I was at Florida engineering school. Went back there for about 3 years, and you saw Paul's letter this morning about our work on nitrogen. He had some references to package plant phase outs, which I appreciate. We've got a few more, but we really had some back in the 90s. And that's how I met the former wastewater division chief of the city of utilities, who was doing some enforcement actions on some of those package plants. And he joked it was cheaper to hire me than leave me in DUP. So that's how we did that. Coincidentally, it was actually retention in large part that drew me here, but also the folks that I met. So it came over, worked at Buckman for 3 years, from 90 to 93 as a project engineer, did some work there, and then followed my former boss out in Reflection and Distribution, where I was named director in 98. And reflecting back, I was there from 98 to 06. Reflecting back, I think the 3 biggest things we did out there was consolidated 2 businesses. We literally had you've been out to Pearl Street, we had the railroad track on one side of the street, on one side of the track, right, we had water distribution. On the other side, you had sewer collection, and they never met in the middle. And so we combined that group and saw the efficiencies there with personnel and materials. and equipment. We also changed the hiring standards there, implemented a TAID limit, I think it was 10th grade, is what we put in place at the time, and then followed that with the state-approved apprenticeship program. Really changed the dynamics of the employees we had up here. So just reflecting back on that, it was a pretty big thing that came up with. But moved to treatment in '06, I've been there since. So born and raised in Jacksonville, spent a little time in Gainesville, getting a BS in environmental engineering. Been married for 25 years and have 2 children. One's at Landon, just started 7th grade. Another one just started a high school thing at Stanton. So we'll see how that goes. And we're active in scouts, baseball, and soccer. Kids. And I appreciate being able to direct you this morning. And I want to introduce Ray Marshall. Who now has the pleasure of introducing.
Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate it. Good morning.
Good
Welcome.
morning.
Morning.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Renetta Marshall. I've been here at JEA for 2 years. I started in July 19th, 2011. My current position is I'm the Director of Water, Wastewater, Grid, Project Engineering, and Construction, and I've been in this position 1 month and 14 days.
Oh, you're a veteran.
So I have it down pat. In the position, I have primarily 3 areas of responsibility. They include engineering and construction management for our large water, wastewater collection and distribution system infrastructure. It also includes land development review and construction management. And lastly, joint projects. And those are basically the projects that we do with entities such as DOT or the City of Jacksonville. My past experience, I've been in the water wastewater field for my entire life, right out of school. I started at Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, which is basically right outside of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, Prince George's and Montgomery County. At that time, it was the 7th largest water wastewater utility. Now it's the 8th largest because I left. Started out as a project engineer and then moved on to a project manager. And then prior to coming here at JEA, I was the Water Resources Director, the Utility Director for the City of Titusville, Florida. And that serves a population of about 50,000. And I had always heard about a JEA at certain professional associations. So it was nice that when I came here, everything that I had heard, JEA is held quite highly in the industry. So everything that I heard met with reality. So it was a pleasure of being here. As far as personal, my favorite undoubtedly thing to do is to spend time with my family. And when I'm not doing that, I believe in community service. And so I've had the opportunity to be involved in some community service activities here in Jacksonville, the North Florida Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure, Clara White Mission Feed the City, Hubbard House Thrift Store. I volunteered there, Habitat for Humanity. Probably my favorite, though, is reading to the Head Start students here in Jacksonville at the public schools. Ooh, I had laryngitis when that was all over, but I enjoyed here, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome. Just to, that one, thank you for our briefings, but just, we've got kind of important business. Let's all make sure our cell phones are on mute. We'll do it. At this time, I'd like to call to order for our public hearing. The next item on the agenda is the public hearing, which I'll now call to order. The purpose of this hearing is to consider 2 pieces. Modification of the electric tariff documentation introducing economic development program rider. Number 2, modification of the electric tariff documentation closing the general service large demand rider to new customers. At this time, Melissa, our Chief Financial Officer, will make the presentation on the proposed changes. Melissa, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I've got a couple of PowerPoint slides that great.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Economic Development Program was designed in support of the City of Jacksonville's and Jax USA's efforts to provide incentives for new businesses to locate in the JEA service area or for existing businesses to expand in our service area. As we've talked about at previous board meetings, our sales growth continues to be a challenge for JEA. Our sales year to date are actually lower than they've been since 2000. This means we've got capacity available to serve additional load from economic expansion, and we can provide discounts to these new customers or to expanded existing customers without impacting economically any of our existing customers. With the expansion of our customer base and the increase in sales is expected to be a positive financial impact overall to JEA. There we go. In terms of eligibility criteria for this rate, it's based on a two-pronged test. One is that you need to bring new load or expand your existing load by at least 300 kilowatts. The second prong of the test is that you need to employ at least 15 full-time employees, as evidenced by filings with the state of Florida. The discount that's offered will be applied to demand, energy, and environmental charges and declines over a period of 6 years. So it starts at 30% and declines by 5% a year over 6 years. And if adopted by the board, this rate would be effective on October 1st of 2013. As part of this rate hearing, we are also proposing the closure of the General Service Large Demand Rider. This rider was designed about 10 years ago, and it was designed for a deregulated energy market. And since deregulation hasn't happened, it's an outdated tariff, and so we're proposing closing it to new customers, but that closure would not impact customers which are on the rider currently. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions, Melissa?
No?
This time, thank you, Melissa, appreciate it, thank you. This time we'll take comments from the public, and we have one, Aaron Brown, JAX USA. Welcome, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Aaron Bowman from JAX USA, and just wanted to come and say how excited JAX USA is about this economic development program. It's another tool that we're going to have to use that we currently don't have. I focus primarily in manufacturing, the big energy users, and we've been at a deficit on some of our area competing states on being able to attract them to Jacksonville because of energy rates. So was up in New York City last week, where a lot of our consultants are that bring jobs to Jacksonville, and I talked about this with them, saying it's not a done deal yet, but we hope it will be passed, and they were very encouraged about it. So the news from New York, where we get about 60% of our projects from, is that this is a great step in the right direction, and they're looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
How does this,
Yes,
can I
sir.
ask a question?
Yes.
How does this rate, this proposed rate, how competitive do you feel this makes us in going after those projects?
Well, our big competitors, frankly, have lower rates than we do. So what this will enable them is to, and a lot of the companies that come in are really looking to offset initial upcoming expenses. How do they get started? What are their expenses to relocate or get a new effort started? So right now, a big energy user is at a disadvantage in Jacksonville. So this won't solve everything, but what we can show is that it'll help them get started up earlier, and over time, we do feel positive about the direction JEA is going, and that we'll be on an even playing field. So I don't know if I answered your question or not,
Not
but
quite.
I think up front, this will help us get the project. Over a long period of time, we're still going to be at a deficit on some of our tough competition, Georgia and
Okay.
Texas primarily.
Okay, that's what I was really
Okay.
asking. We're still at a deficit to some of our primary competitors.
That is correct.
Any other questions? Aaron, thank you for coming.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate it. Okay, at this point, I'd like to adjourn the public hearing. At this time, open up for the board to discuss and take actions on the staff's recommendation during this meeting, immediately following the hearing. Any discussions?
No, Mr. Chairman, I would move approval.
Second?
Moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show the vote recorded unanimous. Thank you. Appreciate it. And we will then move to a public hearing to implement the Economic Development Program rider and other administrative changes. This time, the board will consider staff recommendations concerning the following: modification of the electric tariff documentation, introducing Economic Development Program rider rider DEP and closing the general services large demand rider for new customers. Is there any other further discussion on staff's recommendation contained in the proposed resolution? Any other? Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let record show unanimous. Presentation. We are finished, and we will move on. Correct. Presentation and comments. We will move to number 4 in your agenda. Monica Whiting, Chief Customer Officer. I think you've got some good news for us.
Good morning. I sure do.
Wonderful, and welcome, and thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today and to share. And presentation.
You guys don't want to ask me to do this.
There we go. Okay. Well, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today and share. I'm happy to report today JEA's 2013 residential customer satisfaction results. Last month, we were able to share a little bit about the methodology and the background, knowing that the results were coming. And today, I am going to give an overview of our results. What I would like to first share is that the survey is over 140 questions. There's a lot of data in there for us to glean some gems for how to proceed forward. 126 utilities were surveyed in 8 different regions. JEA is in the South Mid-Size region, which is one of the more competitive regions, which I'll share. I'm going to go through the information at a very high level and very quickly today. As there are over 140 questions, there's a lot of data for us. If any of you are personally interested in digging in at a deeper level, I would be more than happy to meet with you one-on-one and review that. Please know that I'm going at a very high level and that our staff is actually digging in quite a bit more in that regard. First of all, this is the slide from last presentation. I have it here just as a reference again as to the drivers of satisfaction and what drives those drivers. There is common sense behind what each driver represents, but again, there are some components around communication, empowerment of the customer, providing options that are included within each driver. So, key results and opportunities. The great news is JEA met its goal. JEA had amazing, unprecedented movement, moving over 51 points nationally from the bottom of the 4th quartile to the top of the 3rd quartile. That is great news. We're working to maintain that momentum. Our key areas of opportunity as we proceed will be in the area of power quality and reliability, overall communications, and our customer service, the quality, accuracy, timeliness, and ease of doing business. So this is one of my favorite slides to share. This was one that J.D. Power presented to us and shows JEA as the top in the country in improvement. When they delivered this information over conference call nationally to all the participating utilities, they shared that as they went back and looked at data, they actually think JEA's positive movement with 51 points is the biggest improvement in the history of the work and the tracking that they've done. They said they hadn't been able to validate that, but that is how significant this movement was. And they spent quite a bit of time focusing on JEA's movement and the things that JEA had accomplished.
Not to throw a cold war on that, is that all good, or the fact, does that mean we were so low we can only, as you say, No, I'm being serious, because make sure we understand that.
Yes, and we'll show you that.
Okay.
But yes, the movement, even with as low as we were, that amount of movement is really unprecedented, and really was a focused effort in all areas. One of the things that I'll share as we talk about our continued growth moving forward is in recognizing that for us to move up, it means we essentially are displacing other utilities, and everyone's working very hard with the focus on customer service. So here is how JEA compares to the industry. This slide shows the industry in blue, JEA in red, and our targeted segment or our industry segment in green. What you'll see here is that this year we performed above the industry average in 4 drivers and above our regional average in 3 drivers. A question we had received after the last meeting was a little bit about our region, and is our region one of the more competitive regions? Yes, it is. As you'll see from this slide, the South region and the Western region are 2 of the more competitive regions nationally. We are in the South region. So really, our score of 640, when you compare to some of the other regions, would have been first quartile for the region alone. But we have chosen to measure ourselves against the country as a whole in looking at our national performance. When we look at how JEA has compared to our past performance, here what you'll see, which is positive, is that we have moved in every driver and improved, but that is necessary. We were in the 4th quartile. For us to attain our goal of moving into the 1st quartile, we have to improve in every driver. And so the good news is we're moving in that direction. And this is going, Mr. Townsend, to your question. As far as quartile performance, in 2012, we were in the bottom of the 4th quartile. After 2013, we were at the top of the 3rd quartile. Our goal for next year is to get solidly in the 2nd quartile and eventually into the 1st quartile. I do want to stress, though, we are now starting to get into those top utilities in the country. They are not going to give up their spots loosely, and so it will be hard work. This slide gives us a little bit of more of a snapshot by driver and our quartile performance with those drivers. We are currently in the 2nd quartile in 3 of our drivers: customer service, communications, and billing and payment options, and in the 3rd quartile in the remainder of the drivers. Again, for us to be successful to move into the 1st quartile overall, we really need to move all or the majority of these drivers into the 1st quartile. An item that J.D. Power also measures, it is an underlying impact on how customers rate us in customer satisfaction in the different drivers, although they're not questions in the specific drivers. But I decided to pull this slide because I think it's very telling of some culture or underlying themes for us to work on that you will see in our strategic plan. And that is ultimately when customers rated us on image and results, we have opportunity to demonstrate to customers our customer focus in addition to or versus our bottom line. Right now our customers feel the money's more important than them, and we need to work on bringing better balance there. We certainly have a fiduciary responsibility in how we spend their money, but we also need to be focused on how we serve them and treat them. The one that really, frankly, was a bit of a dagger to my heart was rude versus friendly. And we have some work to do in that area as far as our really our quality standards. Again, in many of our situations and in many of our interactions, the quality is excellent. You all hear about them, I hear about them, but we do have an opportunity in some more challenging situations to improve in that area. As well as then the value for the price and the expensive and affordable and overall reputation. So these are components that you will see us working on as well through our strategic planning effort and our customer service initiatives. I'm now going to very quickly go through some of the drivers and the type of analysis we can do. I'm spending the bulk of my time on power quality and reliability to illustrate the type of analysis that we can do by driver and how that will shape our action items moving forward. In power quality and reliability, what this slide is really addressing is the impact of number of interruptions, even brief, per customer and how that impacts their overall satisfaction. Now, as you know, when we look at our overall system, our reliability is very good. Yet we still do have individual customers that are experiencing multiple momentary interruptions, and look at how that line in satisfaction just goes down from no interruptions to 3 or more. And so I really take my hat off to Mike and his team for being focused on that and really being proactive and looking at ways and finding those areas on the system where we might have that occurring to improve upon that to help satisfaction. Likewise, as we talked last time, it's not just about the outages, but it's how JEA responds to those outages. How do we communicate with customers? Again, what this slide demonstrates is when a customer has an outage, when we can the more information we can provide them, that we're aware of their outage, the status of a crew, an estimated time of restoration, the cause of the outage, the number of people out, the more points of information we can provide them, the more satisfied they are with that experience. That is an opportunity for us right now. In all of our touch points, we're not always getting to the 4 or 5 communication points, and so we're working on working that into our processes and ensuring that we are doing that. Likewise, how do customers want to be communicated when we have an outage? And how are they getting their information? What jumps out at me on this slide is look at how high the satisfaction rating is when the utility proactively contacts the customer to let them know about the outage compared to the other communications. 788 points in satisfaction compared to some of the others in the 600. That's an area we're not doing at all. We do offer callbacks if customers ask, but it's buried in our process to be able to request the callback. So we're working on moving that forward and considering doing some more proactive communications in that area with calls to improve the customer experience when outages occur.
Let me ask you a question. When you say improve, when you make the calls out, what would you be doing? How would we impact that in terms of our numbers?
It may be an automated phone call.
Mm-hmm.
It may be an email. It may be a text alert that is making them aware that we're aware of their outage. Here's the estimated time of restoration, and that we'll keep them updated. Our crews are aware of it. Crews are on site. Crews are on their way, whatever those updated points are.
Yeah, I think in doing that, I mean, it's an awesome idea, but realizing that everything is pretty much powered by electricity, we would need a database maybe with cell phones and
Absolutely.
information like that.
Absolutely.
And texting capability to
Absolutely.
make that effective. So
Absolutely, and we're
because
working on
if you're
that.
at home, the minute your lights go out, so does your phone system. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and to tie that technology in there would be awesome, but we would have to do it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So to Ms. Austin, so if we do that, then at some point, then if we're doing that, then we've got to, on cell phones or that, we've got to have those contact folks within our system, correct?
Yes, sir.
So do we periodically update that?
Yes, we do, and we are in the process of collecting those, and also through our online account management, giving customers the opportunity to let us know that they would like that service and capturing that information.
So we tell them why we're asking
Yeah,
for
they need
that
to know why.
information?
Absolutely.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, don't we already have the option, don't we already give a customer the option to have a callback?
Yes, we do. Right now, that option is one that with each outage, if a customer contacts us, they can select to have an alert given to them. What we're looking is create something more proactive that I can set up all the time when there's an outage. And then we have parameters. If it's after 9 p.m. or before 6 a.m., we're not going to ring the phone. We might go ahead and send an email or a text. So it's really looking at all those options. So many of those options or components of those options we have today, we have the opportunity to refine them, make them more visible, and to do more of it.
Because I chose that option when I had an outage a while back, a very brief outage. And I was just really impressed that I got the call back.
Fantastic.
Just as planned.
So, well, and I've got some information to show on that as well. So, power restored as promised. One of the things we're learning is very, very important in our accuracy of our estimation of when power will be back on. Because we can let someone know that we're aware, and here's the estimated time of restoration, but if we restore after we tell them the time that we think, look what happens to satisfaction. It goes from the mid 600s to almost 700 points down into the mid 500s. And so it's really important that we are delivering on what we say we're going to do, okay? Likewise, what is considered on time? It's a pretty high bar. It's about a 10-minute variance. When you start getting after 10 minutes to 2 hours, your satisfaction is dropping. And so again, working with Mike and his team on the accuracy of the restoration, because some people might say, well, great, overpromise and underdeliver, tell everyone 3 hours. Well, no, you're not really, again, you see a decline in satisfaction when that happens. As we move to the driver of price, we talked last month about how important our energy and water efficiency education and messaging and programs are. This slide right here shows the difference in satisfaction on the price driver when a customer is aware of our energy efficiency programs and when they're not. It is almost a 100-point difference. Again, demonstrating our importance in educating and communicating to customers about our programs. Likewise, I think sometimes there's a false concept of the fact that anytime rates are higher or a rate increase is needed, that automatically satisfaction is going to drop. What this slide really demonstrates from the national research is that it is demonstrating that value to customers. It is helping customers understand we have taken every measure to be as efficient as possible, yet these increases are required for this investment. Here's the value that's going to come back to you as the customer and the community in that regard. Graphs on bills. Interestingly enough, JEA just started offering graphs on our utility bills. We do have some opportunities to make them better, but we saw an enormous bump in our satisfaction from the part of this survey year that graphs were on the bill. Our customers that acknowledge graphs on the bill more than doubled, and we definitely saw a difference in satisfaction from those that acknowledge them. You can see again, it's almost a 100-point gain from the customers that are aware of the graphs on the bill. Likewise, our tracker program, while online, helps in this area too. Budget plans. This is another area of opportunity for us. We offer a budget billing program, as does most of the industry. We've got about 3% of our customers taking advantage of this program. The industry has about 11%. So we're really doing some work to market this program, get more customers on the program. But here's the difference. Our customers on our budget plan program or our budget bill program are rating an overall satisfaction over 700, whereas those not are in the 630s. So again, we believe we have an opportunity if we can get more customers to be aware of this program and on the program. Corporate citizenship. This one is always surprising to me. Corporate citizenship is an important driver. As a community-owned utility, our customers want to see us being good citizens and partners in the community. If you look at the difference here of how JEA's customers are rating us in satisfaction when they're aware of our volunteering program, when they're aware of our environmental efforts, of our energy efficiency efforts. In some cases, we're seeing almost 200-point swings. That is very significant. So again, we will continue to put a focus on our website, in our newsletter, and in our communications about our connection with the community, our employees volunteering, our environmental responsibility. The letter in today's paper from Paul is an example of that, of really sharing our commitment to the community. Communication channels. This is near and dear to our heart. We look at this as we're setting our communication strategy. But looking at where our customers are recalling or seeing our messages and how they're rating our satisfaction. Again, here you'll see a big trend in technology, email communication, utility webs and website, really driving up in satisfaction. So we're looking at ways that we can do more and more in this area. Likewise, we have information on communication topics. What do customers want to get information on from us, and how are they rating us? So again, those areas with the higher satisfaction and topic, we want to be sure that we're meeting our customers' needs in that area. Our website, we've put a lot of focus on our website. We've gone to our 2 cents worth group, asked them how things are working. The result is we've made a lot of changes based on the customer feedback. And J.D. Power did an independent survey this year, and our website ranked number 9 nationally. So we'll continue to work on that. This is an area you're going to see in our strategic plan as well. First contact resolution, accuracy. Look at the difference about when a customer contacts us and we take care of their issue with one phone call versus if they have to call a second or a third time, and how that satisfaction declines. So we're putting a lot of work in training our folks, our processes, and ensuring we're taking care of things the first time. So in summary, I gave you a very high overview. Fantastic, unprecedented movement from 2012 to 2013. Huge thanks to all of our employees who engaged in helping make that improvement. And our journey continues. It is very much in alignment with our strategic plan and earning our customer loyalty. We see the alignment between the drivers of satisfaction and our focus areas of being easy to do business with, demonstrating our community responsibility, and empowering customers to make informed decisions. So with that,
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, very good presentation. So we were in the fourth, we were top of the third, and our goal was to be second.
for 2014.
You know, and going through the things where we can improve, there is some low-hanging fruit there. I assume you identified some of those things, which are obviously gets there. When is the survey, the next survey date? Is it 2014, or is it, when is it the next survey date?
So
Period.
JD Power does the residential surveys in essentially quarterly waves. And so every 3 months, we get a wave of data, and then the final results for 2014 results will come out in July of 2014. So what we really will have is I believe two of those waves are from 2013 and two are from 2014
I see.
for the residential market. The business market is on a different calendar, and the business market only does 2 waves a year.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to comment to your team. Kudos for all the incredible work you've done in certainly capturing this award on the ability of the agency to just grab this and really run with it and make the improvements. And it's especially rewarding to this board, because when these numbers were made known to us in this issue, we asked that it be taken to the top of the agenda and be very seriously looked at and changes made. And that has happened. It's happened in a very expedited time frame, and extremely impressed with what you've been able to accomplish in your team. And we just appreciate that you understand the importance of something to the board and you act on it in a timely manner. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I echo the board's laudatory remarks with regards to your success? I will tell you, as the newest member of the board, the bar is very high right now. It's as far as what I expect in the future, but did a great job. I did have a question, and Director Townsend already mentioned about the low-hanging fruit. If you look at over the last year, what areas did you find move the needle the most? Where did you get the biggest return on investment with regards to moving from the bottom to where we are with regards to that focus, and then moving from today to the next iteration of the survey? Where do you see that focus shifting? Right, I'm assuming we don't have the budget to boil the ocean. Right, so we need to focus on the areas where we can move the needle the most with the minimum amount of financial investment.
Absolutely.
If you would. Where is that, and where was it?
Okay,
To this year?
happy to share. Where did we see the bulk of our movement? Power quality and reliability, we saw great movement. We did address some of the low-hanging fruit with items and opportunities that we found, as well as price. Price took a very big jump because we put such a focus on communication of our energy efficiency and working to create more value and helping educate customers of really their opportunity to influence their bill and control their bill. So we saw huge movement there. Likewise in customer service on our website, on our phone system, those were probably some of the bigger areas. And our graph on our bill. I was really surprised to see how much the graph on the bill moved the overall needle. So those were some of the items from the last wave. As we move forward, we will have initiatives and areas of improvement in every driver, because we have to keep every driver moving forward. From the analysis that we've done so far, power quality and reliability continues to be probably one of our #1 priorities in continuing to enhance our response and our communication and focus on those individual customer experiences. So we have a team working on that as far as our communications there, continuing with our focus on cost-effective communications and education to our customers. That is a big focus that's going to help us at every driver with our energy and water conservation messages, our rebate programs, our work that we're doing in the community around the environment, continue to be areas. And then another big focus area is our quality and accuracy of how we deliver services, and to reduce the number of issues and problems that come forward to begin with, and when they do come forward, that they're addressed the first time appropriately. So right now, those are our key areas. What I would like to share, though, is as part of our strategic planning, as we're continuing to analyze this, we are taking all of the opportunities, we're looking at what their cost is, and we're looking at how much of a gap we have in J.D. Power and what items have the potential to move the needle the most for the cost. So we're looking at the time frame to implement, we're looking at the cost to implement, and we're looking at the movement. And we will come up with a prioritized portfolio that gives us a good mix. And so a lot of great ideas. Some are going to move up the list, some we're going to have to defer, and we're going to focus that on where we're going to get the biggest bang for the buck.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to emphasize that because I was about to say that if we have the financial investment that gets the right return, that's the right decision, which you've already said.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Support that, yeah.
And as part of our customer operations reports on a regular basis, we'll be bringing that information forward to you as we're doing the work. And so we'll make sure that transparency is there. And again, I would extend if anyone has specific questions. Again, a lot of detail behind the scenes. We're happy to answer those questions one-on-one as well, and we will continue to bring these items forward on the regular agenda.
Excellent report. I ditto everything that's been said, but I also just want to, commend you, but particularly for the board in our new leadership. When we went through the very deep, very in-depth of picking our new leader, one of the issues that was first and foremost when we were during the interview process was customer service. And I would just, for the record, like to say is that Paul stepped up, made it real clear to us, and made it clear to us that his leadership team was going to focus on that. And so, why I think it's got to start from the bottom up. There was no question that Paul and that leadership team heard this is what it's all about, the customer. And I just want to commend you and the leadership team because while we've got to have the balance with the financial part, if we don't have a happy customer base, it isn't going to get there. I do want to come back on the question that on page 11, and that's probably where I was going. When you look at those three on the graphs there on page 11, where it had bottom line versus focus, the RUD, that is, I want to make sure I understand, is before, I'm just assuming that before there was a drive, not being judgmental, if you were behind in the bill, you got to pay, period, paragraph. My understanding is that we've approached it in a way as it's not our way of the highway, it's how do we get that person? Is that how we're approaching it as opposed to if you don't pay, we're going to turn you off?
Yes, I think we're looking at our policies, and we're looking at our policies to bring more balance between the customer and the financial. I'll use deposit policies as an example that we're looking at right now. And that is, we hold our deposits for 3 years. When we look at the industry, they tend to hold deposits for 2 years for customers with good payment history. We're looking at making that change. Likewise, when we look at setting up payment plans and working with our customers, to work with them to be able to get the money, to your point, versus saying, well, this is your due date and this is just what we have to do. It's also part of the delivery. It's not just what the policy is, but it's the delivery of how we treat our customers. And do we recognize that you have good people going through hard times? And how can we still be responsible to the rest of the customer base, but also work with them and treat them with dignity and respect. And so as we look at that, it really is that mix of our policies in bringing balance, as well as our delivery of how we work with our customers. And we have some fantastic employees that I just love watching them interact with customers, hearing them, and you look at a situation and think it's impossible, and they just have this amazing way. The customer still has a very hard situation before them, but they work with them in a way that is very honoring, and that's what we're talking about here.
Well, I just, on a personal basis, I think that's been one of our, that, when you talk about low-hanging fruit, I
Yes.
think that's, when you sort of, you know, we are a monopoly. So I do not believe that anybody gets up in the morning and says, if the things I don't want to pay this month, you know, is my electric or my water bill, particularly heat, humidity, and a lot of other things if you have people in there. And I think that when you look at our population within our service area, you know, we're blue collar. And, you know, we are not at the high end of that economic thing. And I think without that sensitivity, you know, there's got to be that balance between sensitivity and understanding
Yes.
of doing that. So I really appreciate the fact is that, you know, we're going to that extra mile. And I would imagine is that there's probably, I would think, unfortunately, there are probably some of our customers who, if you look at the way they pay, it's probably sporadic. You know, just that kind word will help them. It makes all the
Absolutely.
difference in the world.
And,
So
and
I-
to work with them. And my experience is when you partner with someone and you work with them, most of the time, they're gonna work with you as well. And so we'll work on that.
Any other comments? Congratulations.
Thank you.
And let us know whatever we can do to help Paul, help the leadership team. I mean, this is very, I do want to think is, we said the low-hanging fruit. I think 2 points. You know, we've set the bar hard for ourselves, but I'd like to pick up on Wyman's point. The folks above us are not going to give this up easily. And we're going to have to
Yes.
redouble our efforts. So we're going to have to make sure that we keep what we've gained on, but we're going to have to be very creative if we're going to move it. But we're going to hold you accountable, but we'll wait for you to come
Thank you.
back again.
And I just want to share briefly, I've got great team members by my side, and I think what you hit, all of the leadership team are very committed to this and equally focused. So I'm confident that we will get there for the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. All right. Where are we? Comments from the public, you want to do this first? Yes, Mr. Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to take a moment and recognize that we do have several distinguished guests with us today, and Carlos is from JEA, one of our largest customers, and so thank you for being with us today, and hopefully it was the economic development rate that sort of brought you in here, and we can work with you towards expansion. In the back, we have Ted Carter, who is Director of Economic Development from the mayor's staff. Thank you, Ted. Welcome. And Andre Wallace is our new CEO of the Downtown Investment Authority. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Welcome.
And Aaron spoke earlier from JAX USA. So we've got a good representation here at the meeting today. And thank you very much for taking time from your busy schedule to visit with us.
Thanks, sir. This time we'll take comments from the public. We have one card, Charles Payne Jr., who would like to talk a little bit about his company, and if you would state your address for the record, and welcome. Appreciate it, Mr. Payne.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
Board.
Good morning.
My name is Charles Payne Jr. I'm the managing partner of Green Grease Biofuels. My concept here, I share in line environmental concerns that the board has expressed here this morning. My concept is to address the residential waste of used cooking oil. I now collect residential cooking oil in this container, another form of recycling, and I make biofuel out of it. This is a chance, an innovative idea for the board, the concerns this morning, to move forward, to not be complacent, to be good stewards of the environment, and to look after our customer base. This form of recycling is not being done. It was being done in very, very few communities across the country. This is an opportunity for JEA as a utility company to support an idea of this nature that would affect all of us. All of us have concern about our soil, our rivers, and our sewers, mostly. We feel this is a preventive maintenance that we do. We provide this service for free to the customers in the communities here throughout the city. And I've shared this opportunity to introduce this company to everyone here today, and I ask for support of the board. We feel this is a very, very unique opportunity for JEA to move forward in the utility industry. Not very many utility companies have addressed the issue of used cooking oil. The EPA has set standards in the coming year to produce over 1.2 billion gallons of biofuel, half of which they plan to use vegetable oil. The residential sector has been ignored since my grandmother's time. We've long considered used cooking oil to be a waste. We now know that to be totally false. It is a viable commodity that's being traded as we speak here today. The residential sector has been ignored throughout the years, and this concept we feel is quite innovative and can address concerns where everybody will benefit from this project. Your concern is to keep the grease out of the sewers, out of our rivers, out of our soil, and this also addresses alternative energy source. Vegetable oil, used vegetable oil, has been used to compromise sewer systems throughout the country. This is an opportunity for Jacksonville with all the resources that we have, from the ports to major highways. We can be an industry leader throughout the world producing biofuel from our own vegetable oil from our residential sector.
Thank you, Mr.
Just curious, good presentation. Have you considered, have you gone to the private sector to make the same presentation?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I
And
go
just
into.
curious about results there.
I go into.
Because it's a great idea. I'm just wondering about this. I guess it's about timing and financial, but I'm just curious about what the private sector thinks about this.
My focus has been concentrated areas, subdivisions, apartment complexes, high rises. Those are captured audiences for my concept. And just because you live on the 20th floor of a particular high rise does not preclude you from frying fish or cooking chicken. So
Tell me
how
about that.
does that grease get from the 20th floor down to the sewer unless it goes into the drain?
Yeah.
So without providing someone a viable solution or alternative to dispose of that grease, they do what's easiest for them. And we want to change the mindset. We go into schools. We have to create a whole new generation of recyclers. And our kids take concepts as innovative and as simple as it may sound. They take these concepts into the home and remind their parents, don't throw the grease away. JEA has embarked on a project to keep the grease out the drain, and that's encouraging. But I say let's move forward and be more aggressive with it, because to encourage you not to throw it in the drain but to put it in the trash, that's really just shifting the problem from the sewers to our landfills. And at the same time, that waste that we consider can be used to create an alternative energy source, create jobs, and save our environment.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Spain.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Wish you well. Thank you very much. Board, we have one more from Ms. Stokes, who would like to address the board. Ms. Stokes, welcome, and if you will, for the record, give us your address. Would like to discuss customer service. Welcome, Ms. Stokes.
Yes, I am here to oppose the report that was just made from Ms. Whiting. I'm at 2610 Iroquois Avenue. I have had a great deal of trouble with JEA, and also now, and as far as her comments on customer satisfaction, I haven't seen any surveys or anything. And the way they're getting these figures, they're false, all the reports that they're making. The way they're getting these figures is to, when a, say, customer, really we're the owners, because the taxpayers own JEA. And also I see Councilman Bishop here. When he wouldn't even shake my hand when I was trying to exercise my constitutional rights to oppose Walt Bucell's position on this board, but I had very good reason to. And but anyway, just to give you a real life example, and what thousands of people, go through, is I came to JEA and spoke to, came down here, made a personal trip, because you get all this press 1, press 2, and but anyway, on July 12th, and to speak to, I asked who the manager was. I was told I could not speak to the customer service manager without going, up the chain of the command. I can understand that. That's, business-like. But anyway, I had trouble even getting his name. I had to ask several times, Mr. David Gardner. But anyway, so it was a Friday, and he was not in that day. And the Wanda is all I was given. I was not given her last name. I spoke with her at 1:55, and then she told me that she took my information and complained. But anyway, and I was told to call back, and the number I was given was the number that behind the when you walk up to pay your bill or whatever, that number. She said the number will go there, and then you could get Mr. Gardner. Well, I called twice. Once talked to a Vicky, and once talked to a Tracy, and then about 3 times after that, never could. Then I called Mr. Gardner back several times. So they're discouraging, and it's just to get the runaround. So that's how they're getting the numbers, is they're not recording the real complaints. But anyway, I did write on my check and payments. I've been paying JEA bill for, I don't know, every month for about probably 50 years or more. And but the way they're getting this is not recording the real, and not letting you through to get your bill satisfied, or the complaint, the problem satisfied. And the reason I was opposed to Walt Bucell's was I was complaint. It was used. My JEA bills are used as bullying and retaliation and harassment, and so I am taking this time to report to the board, so that it is recorded, that you know about it, and that I have reported it. And I did the same thing with City Hall. So there is a recording of it being reported. So you can't say that you didn't know about it. There are several. I had a lawsuit, and all this, I'm not making this up. I am perfectly sane. I have been checked out. I have never been, no doctor has ever told me to, check into a psychiatric ward or a hospital or further. But that's part of retaliation, is to make the person look like there's something wrong with them. But anyway, I had a lawsuit against JEA and Wells Fargo. So that's all public information. You can read it and check it out. They even, so Walt Bucell's called the police when I was directed to him after trying to get through. Excuse me. I was directed to him, and then, of course, that lady was fired who directed me to Mr. Bucell's. But anyway, he refused. It was more like at the top, and the business research shows whoever's at the top, it filters down. So that when you can't get through the bottom, it's because you can't get through. It's proven at the top. But anyway, so he called the goon squad, so to speak, but anyway, and I was tortured in his office, falsely arrested, and this is all public information. But I did, and I have had honors and awards from first grade through the University of Florida and in my profession all along in my life. So it's very true about bullying and harassment and retaliation. It's
Ms. Stokes?
classic, yes.
What is the nature of your most recent complaint that you're trying to get resolved? Is there a particular problem that you're?
Yes, on two of my checks, I wrote that JEA was, it was in the newspaper, an article in the newspaper, that JEA was 31 out of 31 utilities in Florida on customer satisfaction. And yet we gave bonuses, millions of dollars worth of bonuses for last place. So since when in the United States do we reward last place?
Ms. Stokes,
And you wrote that on your check?
Yes, and then I got an increase, a large increase in my bill, and I have been. So it's retaliation. But I do want to say, since it is public, I won at the criminal court level. I've never been accused of a crime in my life. The police lied on the stand, and it was $1 million case. The only reason that I did not win was because of my ex-husband. I am a survivor of domestic violence, and there are some things in our previous marriage and that he did not want out, and so that was coming out. And he was also, my lawyer was Al Datz, and Mr. Datz was also representing my ex-husband in his fourth divorce.
Ms. Stokes.
And so that's why the case was dropped. But anyway, so whenever I have any complaint against JEA, then it's retaliation.
Let me, for the record, number one is, I can assure you that this board, we've had 2 CEOs before the gentleman you've talked about. That's number one. Number two, I can tell you firsthand, after 14 and a half years, there is no retaliation on this board. On the issue on customer service, I would encourage, just a moment, just a minute.
I did not accuse the board of retaliation.
Well,
No,
or
sir.
allowing retaliation, let me, for the
No,
record.
I did
May I
not.
encourage you, though,
No, I
to
did
meet
not
with Monica, who can kind of walk you through how we do this. And if there's an area where we can improve with your service, we are happy to do that. I will tell you that this has been as you probably were sitting in the audience, this is a priority of this board. Customer service, we want it to be real, we want it to be transparent, and we want it to be sincere. So I would encourage you to meet with Monica Whiting to go through that. On the other issues, as a board member, if you can give us specifics on where we can assist or we can try to resolve those issues. And I apologize, and I'm sorry for all your personal issues, but those issues really are not relevant to here. But on the issues of customer service, I would encourage you to meet with Monica, and I will hope that hopefully real soon that if you're back, that you will come back and find that the discussion with Monica has helped you. But unless there's something else very specifically, I would ask that we do need to get on with our issue. But I would encourage you to meet with Monica as long as you want on that issue.
Okay, I'm just tired of the retaliation. I see it, the trucks around, and whenever I do anything, and then I get the JEA trucks, and it's, but anyway, and that's why I'm here, is since I could not get any help through I told you, with the names given. I was here, I thought, well, maybe the board will point me to a person who will.
I think if you would read with Monica White, I think that we can start this in a thoughtful process, and hopefully we can resolve a number of your issues.
And how do I get in touch with her?
And she is right here. This lady right here, the one that spoke.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And I will report back as far as.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, next, council liaison, we're going to still refer to you as President Bishop. We would like we appreciate you having you here.
Would like to follow that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't really planning on saying anything today, but after hearing all the discussion about customer service and some of the metrics that you're measuring and those sorts of things, and Monica is outside at the moment, but I wanted to tell her that it shouldn't be too surprising that when graphs show up, people respond to that. A lot of us like pictures. And, you know, the old adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words. It really does make, it's one of those little small things that I think makes a big difference. I do want to commend the board. I want to commend JEA and all the staff. I think things are really, from a customer perspective, and seeing it in my own neighborhood, in my own dealings, power reliability is up. Outages are fixed faster. I mean, I just know this from firsthand experience. Things seem to be going well, so I want to commend everybody for that. There is one area, though, that I would suggest might be an area to look at, and this is not necessarily on the retail side, but on the, I don't know what the right word is, we'll call it the construction side. Those of us in the design and construction industry deal with JEA and the folks that interface with those that are building projects and building development, from how do we connect to the system? And from an economic development standpoint, I would suggest that that is an area that could be looked at for some either A, improved efficiencies, or B, maybe creativity is the right word on how people do things. And I say that from the standpoint of personal experience from dealing with constituents who have issues, from my own professional dealings with my engineers having to deal with the system. I mean, utility companies in general have a reputation of being very rigid in their thinking. We do it our way, and we don't really want to talk about anything else. It's not something that most people really want to talk about because we all got to deal with it on a day-to-day basis, and we don't want to have to deal. It's like dealing with any regulatory body. You don't want to make them mad because they're going to make your life miserable. Well, I guess from the standpoint of using the opportunity for the pulpit here, if you will, to suggest that there are areas to improve there, and I would suggest that A, it would do well for the company from the standpoint of customer satisfaction, and it would do great things for the city from the standpoint of economic development. It's one of those things that's kind of a sort of a hot button of mine to try to make our development process as smooth and as seamless and as simple as possible, because we want people to say, I want to come to Jacksonville because I can get things done fast. And you are a key component of that, because anytime anybody builds something or expands something, they need more of what you do. And that is a good thing. We want people to do more of what you do, obviously caveat that on an energy efficient basis, but we want them to do more of it. And so I would suggest that that is an area for improvement, and I would be more than happy to work with whoever on that, because I think that we want to do it in the spirit of collaboration so that we all benefit from it. And that's basically it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. President, you are sitting one row ahead of the leadership team. I have no doubt that they will be happy to meet with you to work on that, because I think it is really critical, and we want to do that. So get with it. And we appreciate the candor in that, and thank you. Appreciate it. So, Mike, you and group will do it. Brian will do it. All of them. If nothing else, Mr. President, you'll be outnumbered, but they'll listen to you. You can hold your own with this crew. There's no question about that.
We want to be easy to do business with.
Yeah.
User-friendly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. At this point, we would like to move to board consideration on the consent agenda. If you will look, we have 6 items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move for acceptance.
Move approval of the 2 that require action, or you want to do that?
Well, why don't we do this? Let's do the actions separate, and then we can do for information.
I'd move approval on the 2 that require
All
action.
right, so do you want to withdraw your motion?
He's making it specific, that's fine with me.
Right, okay, so the motion is to just move the 2 action items. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Show that. And then on the informational items, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda is taken care of. Strategic discussion for action, bi-monthly financial. Melissa Dykes. We're only doing good news today.
Hello again. I'll
No
try
pressure here.
Yeah.
No pressure.
I'm going to remake this whole presentation for a minute. Starting with good news, from a financial metrics perspective, we're looking very healthy this year. Electric system, our forecast at the end of the year is to show debt service coverage of 2.5 times. Days cash on hand of 121 days. And I'll call your attention to the footnote on the right-hand side of this page. Our pricing philosophy currently says 60 to 90 days, so our 121 production is above that. However, we are going to have a pricing philosophy discussion. We're planning to have that in October, where we'll revisit this target because the benchmark that Moody's publishes for AA-rated utilities is actually 150 to 250 days. So the range that's in our pricing philosophy is somewhat below that. Debt to asset ratio, we're projecting 77% at year end. In water and sewer, similar story of financial health, 2.4 times debt service coverage, 120 days of cash on hand, and 59% debt to asset ratio. This page is provided in your package for your reference. I'm going to flip to the following page to talk from, which is a graphical illustration of the numbers that are on the table on page 3. On page 4, this is the bar chart that shows cumulative sales by month, year to date, in the electric system. So I'll call your attention, I wish I had a laser pointer, I'll call your attention to July. The last time we talked was 2 months ago, and we were showing cumulative year-to-date sales then of just below last year, and last year was a very challenging year. Last month, we flipped slightly above because of some healthy sales in June. July was a poor month in terms of electric sales. We were, in terms of degree days, we were 12% below fiscal year 12 in the month of July. So I'm sure we all, in the interest of spinning good news, I'm sure we all enjoyed the very mild weather here in Jacksonville. From an electric sales perspective, it's made it a very challenging year. Our projection is that we're still going to finish very slightly above fiscal year 12, but basically flat to fiscal year 12, which was a tough year. Year to date, our sales are lower than they've been since the year 2000, which gives you a picture of just how low sales are. As we talked about 2 months ago, it's driven by a combination of weather, of the downturn in the economy, and of energy efficiency. The next page is a new page to this monthly update package, and what we've done on this page is looked at changes in sales by customer class to try to get a better picture of what's really going on in terms of our sales. The bar charts that are on this page show the percentage change within each customer class. They don't give you a sense of the relative size of each class. So as an example of that, if you look at the right-hand side, the wholesale sales are down quite significantly, but that's only 3% of our overall sales. Beginning with residential, is basically flat to last year. We're up about 0.6%, which tracks the number of new accounts within the residential sector. So we've had 170 more degree days this year than we've had last year, but basically flat sales on the residential side. Commercial and industrial, we're down 161 gigawatt hours this year versus last year. Some of that is driven by customers moving from the commercial and industrial class to an interruptible rate. And so some of that is driving that difference between the commercial and industrial column and the interruptible column. A lot of it is not. A lot of it is just usage is down in the commercial and industrial rate class, and our load research group is doing some work now to try to really identify and pinpoint what's driving that. Within the interruptible class, which is the third column on this page, we're up about 74 gigawatt hours. Some of that is customers moving from commercial rate classes to the interruptible rate. And some of it is driven by real growth within the interruptible rate class. We have an incremental economic development program, which was rolled out about 1.5 years ago, and it provides incentives for customers within that interruptible rate class to expand over their baseline, with the goal of getting back to pre-recession production levels or sales levels within the interruptible rate class. And so some of this growth within the interruptible class is a result of that. They're getting a discount on that incremental growth, which has spurred some increased production within the interruptible rate class. And then the fourth column on this page is our single wholesale customer, which is FPU. Sales are down 40 gigawatt hours in our wholesale customer class. That's the equivalent of about a full month of sales. And that's really driven by expanded cogeneration and expanded use of cogeneration up on the island. So not wholly unexpected. In total, we're down about 102 gigawatt hours this year. From a financial perspective, our total sales variance is about 0.7%. And I'll call your attention on this page to the first of the gray boxes. In terms of the difference between our budget and our actual revenue that we've collected for the year, we're now projecting a $62 million shortfall versus budget. And so we're going to make that up from a variety of different items, which we'll talk about in just a minute. The good news is from in this fiscal year, we're also below our budget in O&M expenses by about $26 million. And that's O&M expenses, and that's also O&M that's classified as DSM, which is earmarked as its own fund. And we're on capital expenditures, we're below budget by about $30 million this year. In terms of our $62 million revenue shortfall, on the left-hand side of that page in the blue box, there's a menu of where that shortfall is going to be made up from. And by far, the biggest items that are going to make up that revenue shortfall are our reduced O&M expenses. $23 million of the 26 will go right toward the shortfall, and reduced debt service costs for this fiscal year. I'll call your attention to the last bullet in that blue box on the left-hand side of this page. If sales are flat to this year, next year, we're on day one of next year, we're going to be projecting a revenue shortfall of $40 million. So these decreased sales are continuing to be problematic for JEA. In the water and sewer system, again, this table is provided for your reference in the book. I'll turn to the next page, which graphically shows the same information. What's interesting about the water and sewer system is we have sort of a similar dismal or good picture, depending on which side of the page you're on, in terms of sales. We're down 8.2% year over year in terms of water sales. And we'll talk about the revenue picture in a minute. It's not a dismal picture from a revenue perspective in the water and sewer system. Interestingly, we are below fiscal year 12 rainfall by about 6 inches. So if you just look at rainfall totals, that would say our sales should be up. People should be watering their yards more. There should be more demand for water. It's been more consistent this year. So last year we saw a couple of very, very heavy rainfall events, which made the total go up, but people were still using a fair amount of water for irrigation. This year, because the rainfall has been so consistent, we're seeing a very significant decrease in irrigation. In terms of the financial picture for the water and sewer system, as I mentioned, from a revenue perspective, even though sales are down 8%, we're almost exactly on budget from a revenue perspective in the water and sewer system. And that's a combination of the rate adjustment for the highest use class, which went into effect on October 1st, and capacity fees. It's for new connections in the water and sewer system, we collect a capacity fee for each one, and that's really helped bolster our revenues for the year. On the expense side, we're showing about $2 million under budget for O&M expenses, and about $22 million under budget for capital expenditures. In terms of combined debt outstanding, in total principal amount, we've got about $5.7 billion outstanding. And that's accrued year to date. As of October 1st of this year, when we make our principal payment on October 1st, that number is going to be $5.651 billion. That's outstanding. Weighted average interest rates, this chart's quite similar to the chart that we saw 2 months ago. The biggest change in the chart here is related to the district energy system bonds, which were 100% floating rate until we fixed them out through a refinancing earlier this year, and now that big jump in the dark line on the bottom of the page reflects that new fixed rate. The variable rate debt risk analysis page we provide as an update each month in the board package. There has been a significant change that I do want to call your attention to with respect to one of our swap counterparties. On the bottom, in the box on the bottom right-hand side of the page, we show our swap providers. Merrill Lynch, until 2 weeks ago, was rated AA2, and was recently downgraded and is now a Baa2. So that's a pretty significant change in credit quality in that swap provider. The mark-to-market on that swap is against JEA, which means they're taking credit exposure to us. We're not taking credit exposure to them. If that mark changes, then they will be fully collateralized, but want to draw your attention to that as a change in the credit quality of one of our swap providers.
Now, you do know that Merrill Lynch is in the process of being absorbed totally into Bank of America, so that may change once again.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And actually, our guarantee on the swap comes from the Bank of America holding company, which currently has the same ratings as the Merrill Lynch holding company, but they've gone ahead and made that change because of the absorption.
Okay.
And the ratings that are on that page reflect Bank of America.
So Bank of America is BAA?
Baa2. No change in our bond ratings since last month on page 13, so in the interest of time, I'll flip past that. And in terms of combined investments outstanding, our current weighted average yield is about 0.52% in that portfolio. Any questions on the financial report?
One, thank you very much. I do have it, and it's just from when we look on page 6 and we look on page 9, and we're talking about how we're offsetting this, the two issues, the big ones here that we're offsetting is capital expenditures for electric and capital expenditures on the water and sewer. I understand that we're being able to save because we're not doing that. My concern long-term, at what point do we hit the wall? And we're not. I mean, we've got to continue to reinvest in the infrastructure, I would think. Are we in a short term? How long can we save and not reinvest in the infrastructure in these two areas?
I think that's an excellent question. What we're doing on the capital expenditure side is looking at a clear analysis around payback for each of the capital dollars that are going out the door. Fortunately or unfortunately right now, because we're in such a low growth period, there aren't real big significant capital projects that are out there for us to need to do to expand the system. So what we're doing right now is more capital maintenance of our existing assets. As we start to see growth, or as those assets start to age out, that picture is going to change. And we do monitor things like looking at a comparison of our depreciation versus capital expenditures to make sure that we're making the appropriate investments that we need to be making. But we're also making sure that every capital dollar counts in terms of looking at a payback for each capital expenditure that's being made in the system.
Yeah, I just sense it because I was in my first 8-year term when we took over from the city on the water and sewer. We were faced with an extraordinary having for capital improvements, and we've made a lot of progress in there. So I just want us to be sensitive to that. You know, Mr. Townsend?
I have a similar question, but not to Melissa, but to Mike and Brian. The capital dollars that we are deferring, are they included in the 2014 budget, or have you had a chance to do that? I'm just curious, kind of piggyback on what you're saying. If you're deferring, I mean, should they have not been in at all, or do we need them next year? So Melissa was kind enough to answer the question, but I'd like to hear from one of you.
Kind of a combination. Some of it is pushed out. We can push out a year or two.
Year or two.
Some of it we can just take off the table because, as Melissa pointed out, it's discretionary. It's got a payback. It's something we'd like to do, but it's not something we have to do. We are not putting the health or condition of the system at risk. We have a pretty robust asset management system and risk management system, so we are not compromising safety or an appropriate level of reliability. We're taking off the table potentially things that may improve reliability in terms of fewer outages, things we'd like to do, but on a year-to-year basis, if you've got to cut back on things, you can pull back.
Okay. Brian?
I think, a couple examples. We had large environmental projects, $20 million at Abutment where Darrell lives. That might come in $600,000-700,000 on a budget. So you have projects like that, we have savings.
Okay.
We also, looking forward, had a couple cutting-edge technology type projects related to automatic control that we didn't really see the cost benefit of it, in a sense. So some of those projects might be delayed, but those might be offset for a decade in a sense, because technology's not quite ready to be like pump station control, two-way control pump stations.
I accept the answer. I also hear you saying, have the revenue been as we expected, would you still, you still would not have spent those dollars? Okay, but that's good.
Pay down debt.
Okay. What? Pay down debt? You're.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good
Any other
answer.
Right
questions?
answer.
You're right.
And the right answer.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for answering the questions. Next. Yes, sir.
Good time, and we're trying to make sure we're listening to our stakeholders and our customers. About 15, 20 minutes ago, Council Member Bishop brought about development opportunities, so we have a presentation here for you.
Oh, look at that. Quick turnaround.
8 slides, won't quite be 8 minutes, but we'll not need the entire 20, so we'll get back. And on a serious note, Wayne
Great
and I...
leadership. Great leadership.
Renetta, and if it's electric, Mike will meet with Councilmember Bishop over here whenever his calendar's available and get the input there. So then on the agenda, some opportunities we have in development. We have growth, which is a good sign. Like Melissa mentioned, the capacity fees, these are new connections. A lot of our apartment buildings, a lot of growth apartments. We also see housing development and some commercial industrial. So we are seeing growth, kind of rebound from 08. Certainly not going to have the same growth we had in 2003 or 2004, but we are growing and rebounding. We'll talk about that. We'll mention, we have a slide on our input from stakeholders, and that was NEFPA, Northeast Florida Builders Association, engineering firms. About a year ago, we had the director at the time, no longer works at JEA, came and did a presentation about development. And at the time, we said, let's go ahead and get some stakeholder feedback and see what we can do to improve our processes and maybe upgrade or update some policies, and that's what we're here about today. We have a slide talking about the off-site infrastructure. How do you invest in infrastructure in the sense of who pays for what developers pay for, what builders pay for, and also what does JEA pay for, and opportunities there. 2 policies. One's a JEA cost participation policy, and I use the word JEA, that's where JEA incrementally pays for upsizing. Another one's a developer cost recovery policy, which is between developer 1, developer 2, and developer 3. We're kind of a middle person in that situation, and a summary in action. So the first thing I want to talk about is really the steps of the process. When a development, and we'll look at, most of the time we'll talk about more of a development like a neighborhood is getting built with 150 to 200 houses, or a strip shopping center with a Target and a Publix and things like that. But it also goes for smaller developments, smaller shopping centers. Basically not talking about one house getting built, but anytime you get a development, a group of construction. You have service availability requests that says, does JEA have water sewer service available at this site? And we let them know, and we reserve capacity for a year. And then the engineer plan submittals, and that goes through several processes. So one of the things we looked at is how can we improve the submittal time? Can we review plans within 15 days? How can we have better design guidelines so the engineer firms have every reason to give us a great design the first time that we don't need to send back for multiple iterations? There are several distinct steps in the process, but we want to make sure that it's several and not several times 2 for everybody's sake. We have challenges with that at times from both parties. And then we have completed construction projects, and that's what we want to see. We want to see what's in green or gray, that bottom bar chart. So what we try to show here was 07, 09, 11, and 13. Symbolically, 07 was before the economic turndown, and you see the height where we're getting 800 availability requests, 1,200 plan submittals. Like I mentioned, you might get multiple plan submittals through the process on one active development. And then through fruition, we had over 200 developments to actually construction. We have inspectors in our group, and these are pipes in the ground. And overall, this presentation, we're mostly talking water sewer. We believe that's where most of the challenges are and the most opportunities, but there is a touch of electric in a sense from stakeholder communication, the process, but mostly water sewer. And from the policy point is all water sewer in today's presentation. Well, the main thing to look at, we are growing. We have growth, we have this opportunity. So we know we're growing, so we better get ready for the growth. And actually, been trying to get ready for the last year or so, and we'll go through that. So what happened is stakeholders, some of them came to the development group, some of them came to the CEO's office, probably some to the board members and said, we need to do something, sort of like Council Member Bishop said today, that there's opportunities what we could do here. So we've talked to developers, engineers, and builders, We went out and got a technical advisor. Pete Halleck is here. Pete was at a board meeting almost a year ago. He's with us for about another month. Pete's transitioned to be the lead of King Engineering, a very significant engineering firm in the history of Jacksonville. They also based out of Tampa, but he's on with us to finish a couple projects over the next month, and he's leading their group here in the last month. He's been very helpful, has several decades experience. I'll stop at several. Pete can tell you exactly how many. But it's been a great help for us. He helped transition. We've been through some transition organizational, but mainly he's there to provide his guidance from the developer's point of view. He's been in the chair of developers and developer engineers. How do they see things and what we can improve? We went out and did some benchmark studies on service charges. The general findings of the benchmark studies was other utilities will charge a lot of money. I say a lot of money. A lot of different charges, nominal fees, whether it's $500 or $1,000 or $1,200 for plan review and plan transmittals. We don't believe that's really good stakeholder payback in a sense. So we didn't really implement what some of the smaller utilities, smaller towns would do. But we did get a benchmark study on that and said that we're looking good compared to our competitors on that. Mostly the Southeast Florida Southeast and Florida. We looked at design criteria and procedures, and we definitely needed some updates on that, and we have done that. The offshoot to the right on the gray arrow, we have design guidelines that have been fully vetted. We're going to go out and publish those to the engineering firms, NEFPA, and JEA.com over the next month. In addition, we had a development team. We had to build a team. We went through, fortunately, we found Ray out of Ridenhour. She was working in the enterprise asset management area, had a lot of background. So she was director. How many days you been? 1 month and 19 days? I think she was manager about 3 months and 14 days in here. She was a manager in our operations departments before. And we felt like we really need to build this area up. We brought another engineer in the group, and we're actively recruiting a manager as we speak. So we're trying to build up the team for this group to give professional. Renee likes to say, you might not always give the developer the news they want, but if you do it professionally and you do it timely, then we're going to be okay. And eventually you can sit at the table, and that's our goal. And hopefully most of the time give the information they want. And then we have board action. We have a couple policies. We have a JEA cost participation policy. At this point in time, has never been a policy. It's never been brought by the board. It's been more a procedure. And this is where JEA pays to incrementally increase or upsize line sizes for future growth and development. And the other one is a developer cost recovery policy that was brought to the board in 2006, and I have a slide on that. So that's kind of output of the stakeholder communication that we're here today. One slide, it kind of gives a little bit of a graphical. Mr. Bishop said a picture says 1,000 words, and we had about 4 iterations of this over the last month, and we like this one. Development number 1 is a neighborhood. You can see the 100 houses there or so in gray blocks. And you have pipes, and you got the stormwater retention ponds. They're the initial developer. They pay for the little thin green lines, the pipes in front of the house, whether it's water or sewer. That's always paid by the developer. The question is, who pays for the off-site infrastructure? That's the kind of the gray highlighted box. And there's really 3 different methodologies. The first one, the typical, is a developer for that particular development. Developer number 1 pays for the lines, the water and sewer lines. That might be a 12-inch line or a 10-inch line or a 16-inch line, depending how big development is, of water and sewer to its specific development for specific needs. But there's no upside. They're not worried about what's going to happen 100 yards down the road. They're not really worried about it, whether it's a city or JEA has to tear the road up 100 yards adjacent to it next year for another development. They're worried about their development, and you certainly understand that. So what can we do to help facilitate planned development? So one methodology that we've done a lot, we did a lot, maybe I say a lot, several times, 3 or 4 times a year before 2008, and it's picked back up to where we did one recently in cost participation where the JEA pays the initial developer the amount to incrementally upsize a line from 12-inch to 16-inch because we see capacity needs in the future. The other methodology that's really meant for regional lines, large lines, is cost recovery, where developer number 1 will recover a portion of its off-site infrastructure from developer 2 and developer 3. That happens both because if you put a 12-inch sewer line in, pipe sizes are standard, whether it's 10-inch, 12-inch, 16-inch. Inherently, there's always a little bit of capacity left in a line because the probability that you need exactly a 12-inch line is not too high. Normally you need a 9.1-inch line or 9.3-inch line. Well, we don't make 9.3-inch lines in the world, so you put a 12-inch line in, there's extra capacity. And developer 1 says, wait a minute, why can developer 2 connect into this line without paying its fair share? So that's what the different arrangements are. The first one, the cost participation policy, a little bit, I want to just remind us what we're doing is JEA pays to incrementally upsize. That's what JEA cost participation. A couple of the backdrops and square boxes there is that the developer invests in their utility, but what do we do about the adjacent ones? So we have a choice that if we want to, and we had in our budget, we have line items in our budget, the developer can go out and bid and say, instead of having a 12-inch line, let's put a 16-inch line. They get competitive bids, and then when JEA chooses to upgrade it. And we do that where we think that we need growth. We do it when we want to connect lines for reliability and for O&M savings. If you have an area that has 2 lines coming together and there's a missing point here, it's good for JEA to have that connection point. It will connect new customers in the future and also help us because we'll have better flow for our water going through the system, have less flushing requirements, and also better reliability. We'll have a loop system. So there's times we want to invest and we participate. The system planning group, Carl Henkin's not here. They've been doing that for 10 or 15 years. And then the, like I said, they were common, very common for economic downturn. For the last 3 or 4 years, we put in the budget, hoping we'd have an opportunity to do this, and rarely did we do it. We did recently do one on Max Lega Parkway. Anyone who's driven out there by the River City Mall, there's a lot of development going on. In retrospect, I guess that happened about 5 years ago. We heard it was about a $5 million investment that the developer put in the main lines all along River City Mall area. So JEA did have a small, maybe about $100,000 cost participation agreement to connect some lines at this point in time. So that's good news that we have these opportunities now. The changes to the policy were basically it was a procedure, and this was really a clarification between the difference between the developer agreement, and also we include reclaim, and some minor administrative change, but nothing substantial in this item. The next one has some substantial changes. So what we're going to do is recommend a board action at a future board meeting that will come back. We have red line documents in your agenda package, and Ray gets the podium next time, whether it's next month, wherever it's good on the board schedule. We'll be up here to answer any questions about the details of it, and we're going to look for the board to approve our cost participation policy or provide feedback, and we'll have a couple iterations if need to be. So developer cost recovery policy, the backdrop of this is that it's between developer 1 and developer 2 and developer 3, and JEA is the middle person in between. So the investment's not made by JEA. To go from a 12-inch line to a 20-inch line, JEA, the community's money's not at. This is developer's risk if they want to extend the line. There is opportunity for the developer on a cost share basis to actually get more of a reimbursement through developer 2 than it might would have JEA through an incremental process under the prior policy or on the cost participation. So there's an economic advantage, but there's also a risk to developer 1. It is made for regional lines. We established the cost recovery boundaries. We don't want this to be for 4 houses. It's for large lines. It excludes future connections less than 1,000 gallons a day, which is equivalent to about 3 residential houses. So it's not meant for a small one. JEA does put a 5% administration fee on it. It probably will cost us more than 5% to administer it, but the opportunity JEA gets is the future revenues and also does try to provide a service to the various different developers. Jody Brooks from OGC has experience from the other side of the table as a developer, and I think she could reaffirm it's probably a lot of work for a 5% fee. And Ray's done it at other utilities also. And Mr. Halleck's had a good background in that. It's a lot of work, but there is a need for it. JEA bought out open cost recovery policies. Important to note, back in 1997, 1998, we had some open cost recovery policy from the PUD. We didn't know exactly what was out there when JEA acquired a PUD, so it took a lot of effort over a year. Mr. Bucells at the time made an initiative to buy those out. I don't remember exact dollar, but maybe 50 cents on the dollar. So if you had a policy out there, regardless if there's a connection or not, we actually bought them out because they were such an administrative challenge. We did have one agreement. The board did have a policy update in 2006, And we have one agreement executed since the history of JEA having the water sewer system. That was in 2008 for $181,000. Unfortunately, it was right before the economic crisis and development was never built. So we see that there is a need for this at this point in time. The major changes that we're recommending is to increase the minimum investment threshold from $100,000 per utility. Utility is a water utility, a sewer utility, or reclaim, to $500,000. That'd be equivalent of a 12-inch line for a mile or a 20-inch line for half a mile. And if you look at whether it's Cecil Field area, Mr. Carter's not here anymore. Mike and I met him out at Cecil Field. We looked at this area. You know it's going to grow one day or one decade. There's going to be opportunity in areas like that. Out by the airport, there's growth opportunities where developers may take the risk to put large lines out there, and this is a scenario where this would work. So 12-inch line about a mile, 20-inch line a half a mile length. We're going to simplify. There's a very complicated 5 to 10 year slide and recovery scale. It was between $500,000 or $100,000 and $200,000. It might have been 5-year recovery. $200,000 and $300,000 might have been a 6-year. We're making a simple, flat, fixed 10-year period for cost recovery. We don't want it open-ended for 2 decades. We want to remove language. There was offering of 45% upcharge or additional cost recovery, and don't really see the need for that, and the basis to support that administrative will be quite a challenge. We want to make it available for initial developers when they are utilizing less than 75% of the hydraulic capacity of the line. Because if a developer needs 11.8 inches of a pipe and they have to put a 12-inch pipe in, we don't really want to say we're going to want to administer a cost recovery for that 0.2 inches diameter of the pipe. It's really meant for when the developer has to put a larger size in than necessary for their development, or they want to extend it for a cost benefit to their point of view. We're going to clarify our hydraulic share calculations to exclude fire flow demands. You have to have fire protection, which increases your need for pipe sizes. And we're really going to differentiate between JEA cost participation policy. They were kind of combined together in a single policy and very challenging for everyone to administer. Our recommended board actions to receive feedback, approval, whether it's in September or future board meetings, and go from there. And to sum it up, try to leave 3 minutes on the table. We have ramped up organization as well as our policy procedures with the opportunity we have with the economic growth opportunities. We're going to do our best to provide service in a professional and timely manner and continue to improve in that. We did receive stakeholder input, obtained technical advice. We've got to appreciate Mr. Halleck. Conducted benchmark studies to see where we needed to go. And we're going to communicate our revised design guidelines to stakeholders. And once these policies are approved, we'll go out and communicate through JEA.com, Northeast Florida Builders Associations, and various different stakeholders. Any questions?
Any questions?
Good report.
No, we did.
You sure about that?
We'll get with Wayne to figure out when we can get it firsthand.
Yeah, I'm kind of going to piggyback a little bit on President Bishop's, because I've also gotten input. On page 8, where it talks about, the last 2 bullets, can I just really encourage the team to really keep those lines of communication open with the builders and the developers? And let me put on my chamber hat for a little bit. Before we hit the recession, the developer community, the builder community, and their subs looked a lot different than it is today.
Yes.
And now that we're coming out of it, they're not in the same place they were when it started. And they had to do certain things to survive. So as we're looking at those guidelines and that criteria, the folks that we may have been dealing with before the recession look very different than what they do now. And so as we go through that discussion with them, I think we need to be sensitive to that. And then the other thing, let me just be real candid, this is the chamber part. We are thereabouts the second largest chamber in the United States, but 94% of our membership is made up of employees of 25 employees or less.
Small firms.
Small firms. We are bread and butter, heart and soul. We are not big. So as I just really encourage us as we're going through these guidelines and we're going through these policies is to spend a lot of time listening to get an understanding of the environment in which our vendors, our builders are there. the more we can, it's a little bit like Monica was talking about, it's the communication. If we can take that mystique out of it, that makes it, help them understand where we are, the shortfall, I mean, where we are as a possible vendor, helps them understand where they can or may not fit into the equation this year or next year. So it's all about communication. And the more that you can reach out, I really don't believe that we will get any criticism that you and your team are spending too much time with the stakeholders.
We heard
If
you
that's
well.
the case, we're happy to do that.
We're meeting next week. Paul, Monica, and I are meeting
And if
with
you
Nef
have
next
that,
week.
we'll do that, but I'll leave it at that.
Just to piggyback on what the chairman said, talking about it looks different can mean a lot of things. Well, one thing that it is, the market is highly, highly competitive. The tolerance for risk is down. The tolerance for delay is down. Timelines are extremely tight. That's the big change between now and what we went through in 5 years ago.
Especially with potential rise in interest rates.
So you've got that, and you've got everybody who survived all of this shakeout is operating on a much
Tighter margin.
margin on everything. And so,
One of the-
that's really what I'm.
Both of you saying one of the challenges that we had, a lot of developers have empathy for it and understanding. Before 2008, they had designs on the shelf, and they had a certain design for a lot configuration. And now you come in the same area, instead of having 180 houses, you might have 202 houses. So the pipes need to be located in different places. We actually had some place where the pipes are installed, the design's installed, so we're working with those developers. A lot of time, I know Pete and Ray have spent a lot of time working with them to try to help their plans come through the process. We had a challenge one recently. We said, let's go pull in Mr. Steinbrecher for the help on the permit with DEP. They met this week. So we're trying to bring in our A team anytime we need to help with specific challenges that people had, especially to recognize the ones that had developments before 2008 that were in the works. Those
Brian, I don't want to belabor this,
Okay.
but one of the things that Monica raised, and again, I'm just coming back on the excellent work where we've made the improvement on customer service, is that one of the things that both Monica and her group came is that when they were benchmarking against the industry. And what she's changed is the environment that we're benchmarking against our customer as opposed to the industry. Because if you talk to ABC Garage or whatever, they really don't care what's happening in South Florida. They live up here. And I think where we've done the low-hanging fruit, where you've been is why we are concerned about what our competitors are doing. You've switched the focus to benchmarking what the customer and or the stakeholder who is here. And again, you're making progress. I don't want to up that, but as we look at that, and again, I've got my chamber hat because I just sit through these same meetings. That's where the area, and it's really about communication. I encourage you to just work and build
And I'll
on the
go out
work
my
that's being
own,
done.
and we'll go out and Ray, and we're still building the team. We're gonna put a manager in place next month. We'll work. on
Monica
those.
can probably give you some good
Individual.
insight on how to do that.
Yeah.
She's doing really good. Thank you, Monica. Any other comments?
May not get one
Nope.
day Amazon turnaround, but we'll do better.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, thank you, sir.
At this time, we will turn it over to Chairman Townsend on Finance and Audit, who has a page and a half of
Well, I won't
information
take
in
that
front of
much time. Brian took some of my time. Finance and Audit Committee met on August 12th for our quarterly meeting. All members were present. First presentation was given by Doris Champ. We had to approve the audit services charter, the internal audit plan, and the JEA electronic compliance policy. Mr. Chairman, we approved those in the committee. I assume that has to be approved by the board as well?
Yes.
So I would like to ask for a motion at this point, please, on those three items.
All right, sir, there's been a motion. Second?
Second.
Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
So that-
Thank you. Also, Doris Champ gave a information update on enterprise risk management, trending reports, audit project reports, summary of audits, ethics hotline, and the action audit plan. I would say that the committee was very comfortable with the results of all those areas, and that's just informational. We'll let Stanford, who is the emerging workforce strategies and ethics officer, gave us a update and indicated that the three areas that I guess provide a lot of times in terms of inquiries regarding travel, secondary employment, and business relationship with employee spouses The committee asked her at our next meeting to come back with more specific types of areas, items, so we have a better appreciation for what she's discussing. This also is a time of the year for the external auditors, Ernst & Young, to review the 2013 financial statements, and that was no problem and well received. Melissa Dykes, again, acting as treasurer, because as you know, that position is vacant at this point, presented several items. The first was just the electric and water system quarter report, a recap of the district energy system, which is informational. But we do have 4 items here. One item on the, at the 4 items here, Lisa, which you're going to abstain from, and this is the first of the 4. The first is on the debt parameter restructuring of the St. Johns River Power Park System, resolution number 2013-5, and the second one is 2013-16, which is the debt parameter resolution for bulk power supply systems revenue bonds. And I'd like to, Mr. Chairman, take those 2, and because the next 2, I would like to ask Melissa to briefly describe them before we take a motion, if you might,
Okay,
please.
so you're going to do just the first 2, and for the record, Ms. Weatherby will abstain.
Yes, she will, yeah.
All
So I
right.
need a motion on that?
Yeah, so moved.
Second? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Melissa,
Oh, sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Melissa, if you would just briefly talk about the 200 to the 300 in the bank, et cetera, on item 5, and briefly the item 6, okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
3 times in one day. I'm feeling very popular. The first item that's here, which is in E, is the line of credit. We had a discussion with the Finance and Audit Committee in December where we reviewed the corporate risks for JEA and specifically some risks in our debt portfolio, and discussed going out to the market to expand our existing line of credit from $200 million to $300 million. The other nice benefit of doing that is that while we do have a very large debt load from a rating agency's perspective, our corporate liquidity position is going to be a very important offsetting positive credit factor for the protection of our credit rating. We did an RFI for that bank facility and received responses from 14 banks. The best response that we received was from the Bank of Tokyo Mitsubishi and their affiliate Union Bank. And Bank of Tokyo would provide $200 million of taxable credit. Union Bank would provide $100 million of tax-exempt credit. And that facility will be renewed next month.
Okay. I thought that was, the committee did approve that, but I just wanted her to put.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, like a motion.
Do you want me to continue and do them
Do
together?
both? Okay, that's fine, good, okay.
Little f here is the interest rate and commodity hedge agreements. JEA has some interest rate swap agreement, master agreements that have been in place for almost 10 years. So they're outdated in terms of credit terms, and we don't think the counterparties would be willing to trade with us under those existing documents. We also, in connection with this effort, needed to put some commodity hedge agreements in place. We had traditionally done commodities hedging through the Energy Authority. That is no longer allowable because of Dodd-Frank. So we need to do all of our financial commodities hedging through JEA. These agreements would allow us to do both. On the interest rate side, it's an important risk management tool. As we talked about earlier, we have had a swap counterparty that's been downgraded. If we ever wanted to assign one of our existing swaps, we would need to have these agreements in place in order to do that quickly. And so it's a risk management tool to allow us to do that. 2 of the 3 agreements we have as part of this agenda item also cover commodities hedges. However, we cannot enter into any new commodities hedges without a commodity hedge risk management policy in place, which is approved by the board and has not been brought in front of the board yet. So while the documents accomplish both goals, we cannot do any new commodities hedges until we get that policy approved by the board.
Okay, thank you. Now, Mr. Chairman, on both those items, please.
Motion.
Last motion on those 2 items, please.
Move it.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show it unanimously.
Thanks, Melissa. Final item with Janice Nelson, we had a discussion about our external auditors. It's the time that the initial 5-year contract is up. However, we feel very comfortable with them, and we are asking, the committee is approving, asking the board to approve, recommending that we extend the Ernst & Young contract for 1 more year with an option for an additional year. So that's a motion.
Second.
Well,
just the discussion, it's 18 months.
Well,
It was
it go,
amended
it's going to go from,
in
yeah, that's right. It goes from June, it's going to go from December, June to December.
You
The
want to
following
restate
year.
your motion?
Yes, it's actually, it's not for 1 year, it's for 18 months. Thank you. I just want to see if you're listening. Okay, yeah.
Do you second that?
Yes.
New motion second.
Okay.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
What's that?
With that amendment, I think that's my last.
And you're down to number, rating and aging presentations in that.
No, the only other thing, Chairman, is that our next meeting is December the 11th, and our meetings do begin at 8 o'clock, by the way.
And the rating agency?
Well, that was, actually, that was announced by Mr. McElroy, but the rating agency presentation dates are December 5th and 6th in New York City.
Terrific. Again, we're probably discussing this at the retreat, but from the chairman's perspective, I want to thank all of our 4 new board members, particularly Lyman, our newest one, is that one of the things that we have encouraged you and we appreciate is that all of the new board members, one being on the Finance and Audit Committee, this is extraordinarily important, and we are really going to, from the board's perspective, the chairman's perspective, is encourage all of you all to attend our rating agency, given some of the opportunities, challenges that we're going to be seeing in the next, particularly in the next 3 to 4 years. I think the more that we can have your expertise and that institutional knowledge with that, I think is going to be long-term better. And Mr. Chairman, again, Chairman Townsend, being a great coach and mentor to our 4 new board members, we appreciate that. All right, managing CEO report. Mr. McElroy.
Mr. Chairman, if I can follow up on those comments in terms of the rating agency, in terms of the annual review, it's timed specifically to coincide with our annual audit, the release of the financial statements, which occurs in the first week of December. We deliver those to the rating agencies, which essentially are a proxy for Wall Street and our investors. When they look to rate and review JEA, they focus on governance and management and policy making and strategy, as well as the financials and the overall operations of the utility. So the board members play a key component in presenting JEA to the investment community, and it's good to have those members on board with us during that time. Looking back on today, a couple of comments. Certainly, Darrell was a little bashful and shy in terms of talking about Buckman, the wonderful things that are going on out there, and how we are going to improve the quality of the river through that $22 million investment that we are making, and really helped us in terms of the editorial that appeared today that was helpfully constructed by the team in Environmental Services and Public Affairs. Ray, we just want to thank you for choosing JEA and being part of the team. We're going to leverage the skill and knowledge that you have. The customer satisfaction recognition and that we were able to share with you today really was a team effort. Clearly, Monica's role in terms of the customer office is key and critical. But remember now, we had a initiative that went utility-wide and took people from the field and from the office, from the levels of management to the frontline service providers, 115 or so, and created 6 teams that went utility-wide in terms of working on almost 36 different initiatives to help lift. And we're going to continue that through this initiative and then marry that up as we go forward with the strategic planning process. And so it's been exciting to see the utility perform. I have had the opportunity to sit down with each one of the 6 teams. I think I have one more to go with the team members, and we go around the table and sort of introduce ourselves, both a little bit about JEA and a little personally, and what did they learn from the experience. And I would share with the team here on the board, one of the key themes that comes out of this is the excitement to share and to grow outside of their existing day-to-day responsibilities, meet other folks, and really be able to implement change. So it's exciting to see. Teaming up, which was great in terms of the Treasury team, the performance of those refundings that were approved by the board today will accrue millions and millions of dollars of savings for our customers prospectively. The line of credit was done both in terms of more credit but lower cost. Just a phenomenal offer to the market. And I would just compliment the Treasury team again and Melissa's group on the hedge agreements that we put in place. The terms and conditions that we have now are not seen in the market today. So again, the strength of having our credit rating at the levels that it is allows us to not only save in interest, but be able to conduct business at a very high level and on very good terms for our customers. And that's certainly a value of maintaining that. And the development is something going forward. I'm glad we're taking that and going to tackle. I would say that we talked in terms of September. We're going to push that out at least another month and take Councilman Bishop up on his offer to work with us and make sure that we have a refined process that we can put in place and provide value to the community. But with that, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate the job. Chairman, as Chairman, I have two things to state. Number one, I just want to say on behalf of to the JEA employees as well as the leadership team, the extraordinary job that you all have been doing since the customer service, and one, how you all work together, and more importantly is how you all have brought that information about, one, the job that you've done, the low-hanging fruit, but your candor and the transparency in which you're saying these are the issues that we're going to go forward. So on that. And then my second point is just to my colleagues here. I will tell you it's a personal and professional joy. Each of you all just bring a depth of knowledge and a skill set and the camaraderie and the team effort that you put into this every day, particularly for the four of you all who are new to the board, the extra time that you're putting in and the effort that you're putting in the audit and finance. Again, we'd love to double your pay, but we're waiting for Chairman Townsend to come up with that motion. But the time that you do this and then the time that you're doing on the finance and audit. So I say to each of you, thank you for the job well done. Colleagues, any other announcements? Nothing else? Thank you all very much. We're adjourned.